This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Friday, January 31st. I'm Ephraim Graham. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin this half hour with Virginia's new legislative majority working swiftly to bring major changes to state laws affecting abortion, to gun control and the Equal Rights Amendment. Heather Sells reports it's becoming the new progressive model on some of the nation's most important issues.
Democrats have control of the legislature and governor's mansion for the first time in decades, and they're wasting no time turning the Commonwealth's laws blue.
I've been in academia, for 30 years or so, and it's been trickle, trickle, trickle. But boy, lately it's just been coming at us full speed.
One of the first moves, ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment. The deadline passed decades ago, but now the Virginia Attorney General and 2 other states are suing to have it added to the Constitution. That was followed by gun restrictions many thought impossible in Virginia, and new protections for LGBTQ people. It's astounding considering where the state was just 1 year ago. Virginia and the nation was shocked after this exchange that revealed a Democratic push to allow abortion up until the moment of birth.
Where it's obvious that a woman is about to give birth, she has physical signs that she is about to give a birth. Would that still be a point at which she could request an abortion if she was so certified? She's dilating.
My bill would allow that, yes.
The measure failed, but this is a new year. Now Democrats are eagerly rolling back laws intended to reduce abortions, like the 24-hour waiting period, a required ultrasound before an abortion so a woman can see her child, and information about alternatives, including how to get assistance for prenatal care.
We are discussing repealing provisions that have been added on over the past 20 years that shame women, that impair their ability to make their own decisions.
Republicans argue taking away these tools put women back in the dark.
Instead of informing and educating women, we're telling them for 24 hours, you don't need to know the information in that ultrasound. Make a decision without having all of the facts. I thought we were about empowering women.
Soon, nurse practitioners and physicians' assistants will be allowed to perform abortions. While many Virginians are surprised at the speedy changes, it's exactly what Democrats seeking control promised.
If we have the majority, the work of a lifetime is the work of 2 afternoons.
Governor Ralph Northam, a Democrat who is a pediatric neurologist by trade, is expected to sign the new abortion policy into law, along with other new liberal policies passed by the legislature. Heather Sells, CBN News.
The impeachment trial of President Donald Trump could end this weekend. It's looking like Republicans have the votes to shut down Democrats' attempts to call for witnesses. The Democrats needed 4 Republican votes, and one of those they were hoping for. Tennessee's Lamar Alexander announced last night he's heard enough and will vote against calling witnesses. If that vote fails, the body will move to acquit or convict President Trump, with an acquittal expected. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo visited with Ukrainian President Zelensky today, saying the U.S. remains committed to supporting Ukraine's fight against Russia. And CBN News is providing special coverage of the impeachment trial live every day. You can find that on the CBN News Channel. Attorney General William Barr talked faith and culture recently and said he believes in the separation of church and state, but that's not the problem in America today. The Daily Signal reports Barr says religious people aren't forcing their views on the non-religious. Rather, it's the opposite, with militant secularists forcing their values on people of faith and not accommodating their religious freedom. Barr made the comments in an interview with Cardinal Timothy Dolan of New York on SiriusXM's The Catholic Channel. Mixed reviews of President Trump's Middle East peace plan released this week. David Brody sat down with the U.S. ambassador to Israel to find out why he believes it will work and be good news for Christians visiting the Holy Land.
There were several people who provided quite a bit of input into this Middle East peace plan. One of them, a significant player, U.S. Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman. He has seen tension between the Israelis and the Palestinians go on for a very long time. So the question now, Why this plan? Why now? And can it even work?
What this plan does is it presents a hard offer to the Palestinians, the first they've ever received, the first time Israel's ever identified with specificity what are the territorial dimensions within which they're willing to live side by side with the Palestinian state. What are the terms under which they will accept the Palestinian state? What are the security protocols under which they will live next to a Palestinian state? So it's a really hard offer for the Palestinians. And on top of that, Palestinians have 4 years to claim the prize. 4 tough years. They have to, in that period, stop the malign activity. Hamas has to disarm. Islamic Jihad has to disarm. They have to stop paying terrorists. They have to stop inciting hate.
How do they even get there at this point? They don't trust Trump. They don't trust folks coming from this administration.
Well, look, this was designed to, if not regain or obtain the trust of the leadership, at least to obtain the interest of the Palestinian people. Look, the leadership has failed the Palestinian people for generations. They've become pawns in larger conflicts, and the leadership has shown itself to be very adept at misdirecting the resources of the territory to their own pockets. And so the fact that they're not jumping for joy right now is not a great surprise to us, because they thrive. Their business plan is to continue to foment this hatred. But the people within the territories, they are suffering.
As for evangelicals traveling to Israel, Friedman says there's good news in this proposed peace plan. Israel would have sovereignty over many historical biblical sites, which right now are hard to get to.
Israel has not yet obtained sovereignty over those territories. If they do, and our plan contemplates that Israel will, you're talking about opening up the Bible, bringing it back to life in ways that I think your listeners could not have even have imagined. I mean, imagine just ease of travel under Israeli civilian autonomy, Hebron, Beit El, Shiloh. I mean, it's an opportunity for biblical tourism that I think will grow and flourish in profound ways.
On this president, the Israeli transportation minister, I think, just recently said he's God's messenger in the White House. I mean, is Trump kind of heaven sent for you guys?
Well, look, when it comes to events that transpire, whether it's with regard to Israel or anything else, I mean, I'm a believer. I believe that God runs the world. So that would apply to the president. It would apply to you, me, and the cameraman. So that's not news to me.
And just to clarify, you would say it's not news to you. You're talking about kind of a, God puts people in certain places for certain times, kind of for such a time as this?
I think God puts people in places for certain times, at all times.
And Trump is Exhibit A of this.
He sure is.
David Brody, CBN News.
And our CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now with more. So, Chris, could some of these Sunni Arab states jump ahead of the Palestinians and make peace with Israel?
I think that's exactly what they could do, Ephraim. We've talked earlier this week to Joel Rosenberg, who's met with many of these Sunni Arab leaders. And actually, I think they might be almost competing to who's going to be the first nation to actually make peace, take this trip to Jerusalem, sort of like Egyptian President Sadat did back in the 1970s. So that's a possibility for some of these Sunni Arab nations in the Gulf. For example, there were 3 Arab nations there at the White House: Oman, Bahrain, and the UAE. That was more than symbolic. They were taking a step publicly that they were going to at least consider this plan. So I think it's part of the calculus of this plan is to have these Sunni Arab nations, particularly in the Gulf, put pressure on the Palestinian Authority. They have been the ones really typically that have stood behind the Palestinian Authority. Right now they're saying, why don't you get on board? Why don't you at least negotiate with Israel with this new peace plan?
So, Chris, how difficult is it for Palestinians to speak freely?
Well, I think this is one of the underreported stories in the West, Ephraim. It's very difficult to speak freely. If somebody came out publicly, for example, in this town square of Ramallah or many of these Palestinian cities, that'd be very dangerous. I'll give you one example. Fatah, which is the political arm of the Palestinian Authority, put a Hamas video on its Facebook page. And the video actually intimidates and threatens anybody that's going to be in favor of this plan. That's just one example. example of this kind of intimidation. Also, the Palestinian Authority media for years has been indoctrinating its people not to have peace with the Jewish people, not to recognize Israel as a Jewish state. There's really not a free press there in Palestinian authorities, as well as no free elections. For example, Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, he's in the 16th year of his 4-year term. That just gives you an idea of the lack of democracy there in the Palestinian Authority areas.
As we wait and watch, how can Christians pray for this situation?
Well, it's a great question, Ephraim. I think, first of all, pray for the Palestinian people. They have been under the heel of a corrupt leadership for many years. And as we just said, there's not a lot of freedom there. Pray for the Israelis. A lot of people have hope about this plan. Some are very skeptical in terms of establishing a Palestinian state and what that would mean. And also pray for the leaders in the region, and especially those Sunni Arab leaders we just discussed, to give them the courage, the boldness to really go ahead and make peace with the Jewish state. That would be historic. That would be something like we mentioned President Sadat, or maybe King Hussein of Jordan. They were the ones who courageously made peace back in the 1970s and then the 1990s. Pray for them, and also pray for the elections for Israelis. For the 3rd time within a year, they're going to be having national elections. There's been political gridlock here for about that time. Pray for them that they can finally establish a government here in Israel.
Let's look ahead to Jerusalem Dateline this evening. What do you got planned?
Well, we have more updates on what's happening, a look at how people are reacting, both Palestinian and Israeli reaction here on the ground to that plan. We have an extended report with Joel Rosenberg. He's going to talk about a lot of things about how this plan is going to work. We have a report on the Palestinian Authority anti-Semitism. That's well documented, and really, actually, the population is one of the highest anti-Semitic groups in the world. And we also have a touching story, Ephraim, about a Dachau Holocaust survivor. I think people are really going to enjoy Jerusalem Dateline this week.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Look forward to that and so much more. I want to remind you, you can catch Jerusalem Dateline on the CBN News Channel this evening at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. The World Health Organization has declared the coronavirus outbreak from China a global emergency. It says the number of infected people spiked more than tenfold in just a week. The United Nations Health Agency made the determination on Thursday as more cases of human-to-human transmission were being reported worldwide. To date, China has reported more than 7,800 cases, including 170 deaths. 18 other countries have also reported cases. Coming up, one doctor's mission to eliminate obesity in the church and help the faithful fight the sin of gluttony and win. Stay with us.
I am Regent's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Obesity is rampant in the church, with overeating it's assumed as an acceptable sin. One doctor who is also a Christian is doing something about it. CBN Health reporter Lori Johnson is showing us how.
Overall, the church does a pretty good job avoiding unhealthy things like smoking, alcohol, drugs, and promiscuity, but misses the mark when it comes to obesity.
Research shows people who begin attending church in their 20s are more likely to become obese by middle age than those who don't go to church. This especially troubled doctor and Christian Daniel Amen.
I actually prayed about it because I went to my own church and saw them serving hot dogs, donuts, ice cream, bacon, sausage. And I'm like, they're giving you all this food to kill you early. Save them, then kill them.
He feels it's high time the church deals with its weight problem.
You know, it's just not okay when your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit for churches to basically poison you with low-quality food and think, well, that's what we've always done, so it's okay.
As a brain imaging specialist, Dr. Amen published 2 studies showing as weight increases, the brain actually shrinks. It's widely known that obesity lowers quality of life, adds millions to healthcare costs, and can lead to an early grave. Nationwide, the South leads the pack.
And that's also where there are more evangelical Christian churches. And I'm not okay with that. You know, the Bible Belt widening.
With that in mind, Dr. Amen co-developed a church-based weight loss program known as the Daniel Plan. While the classes last 6 weeks, the diet is intended as a lifelong discipline.
I feel so good now. You know, I swim a mile a day. I was in a wheelchair at one time. I couldn't keep my balance, but now look at me.
75-year-old Phyllis Neal joined the Daniel Plan at her Yorktown, Virginia church. She suffered from pain, depression, and couldn't sleep due to a number of health issues.
Vicodin and Ambien and Prozac, and I was just on so much stuff.
Phyllis ultimately lost 65 pounds, stopped taking medications, felt happy, and began sleeping like a baby. She attributes much of her success to the faith element of the plan.
And God just took control. And He has just blessed my life so much.
Her 75-year-old husband, Dennis, got on board too.
I lost 65 pounds just by eating God's food.
Dennis and Phyllis believe so much in the program that they now teach others.
One of the things I tell people in our classes is if God came down today and said, look, I want you to do this task for me, and then you tell him that you're not physically fit to do it because you're overweight, that doesn't work.
The Neals emphasize the importance of breaking free from processed foods because of ingredients like MSG, industrialized oils, and high fructose corn syrup.
Diabetes, cancer, all of it's related to sugar. And we got to get that out of our system. We've been hijacked by the food industry.
Instead of packaged items, Phyllis fills their kitchen with natural whole foods, free of chemicals and sweeteners. Chicken strips, cut up vegetables, boiled eggs, beans, cheese, and nuts.
You'll see that I keep fruit available. My grandchildren come in the house. They don't ask for candy here. They go over and get a piece of fruit, and their parents are so happy for them.
Drinking plenty of water helps us manage our weight because, believe it or not, sometimes our brain tricks us into thinking we're hungry when we're actually just thirsty.
People adhering to the Daniel Plan exercise regularly and attend support group meetings. So while obesity continues to plague the church, Christians nationwide are shedding millions of pounds thanks to the Daniel Plan. named after the Bible hero whose diet reflected his commitment to God. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Still ahead, the biggest weekend of the year for professional football. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl with Sean Brown. Stay with us.
Having sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faithwire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the Homefront?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
Welcome back. Sean Brown joins us now to talk about the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs and a little matchup this weekend we call the Super Bowl. Sean, so good to have you.
Good morning, Ephraim.
Before we get to all the excitement about the game, we have to talk about the tragic story that's really overshadowed the Super Bowl for many of us.
Yes.
And that is the death of Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gianna, as well as 7 others in the helicopter crash on Sunday. What can you tell us about the latest on the investigation so far?
All we know is that I guess the investigation is ongoing right now. I mean, we've got all the identity of the families and whatnot, and of course the pilot and all of those things. So I guess the investigation is still going on as to what actually happened. All we know at this point is that it was very, very foggy and it was hard to see. Probably shouldn't have been flying in those conditions. But as time goes on, I guess the investigation will reveal what was actually happening, whether it was windy, whether it was malfunctioning, and those kinds of things. So as time goes on, we'll begin to find out what those are. But what's strange about this is that it just hit us so much. It hit us so hard. There I was sitting at the media center for the Super Bowl, getting our credentials when all of the news came out, and of course TMZ leaked the news or shared the news, and we didn't believe it at first. Right. Even some of the players and me talking to them once they arrived, they were arriving when they got the news, and we just didn't believe what was happening. And so we're all grieving, and it's going to go on for a while. Yeah. It's amazing. We were talking earlier about it's strange, that we're all grieving. A lot of people obviously knew Kobe, but most of us didn't. And it's strange how you never really know how someone affects your life or impacts your life until they're gone. Yeah. And my good friend Dr. Barbara Shabazz gave a term to it. She said it is called parasocial grieving. And because I had to ask myself, why is this impacting me so much?
Yeah, same here.
You see, people gathering, people crying for someone that we really didn't know personally, but we saw him grow, before our eyes. Yeah. And for me, it was the beginning of my very marriage. I know exactly, watching his career evolve,
Absolutely.
And it is just a sad thing. For his wife and kids, and it is just a tragedy.
Yeah, real quick, she finally also spoke on social media. Many people following.
Such a courageous. I mean, to do it so early. Obviously, her and her daughters are still grieving. The family's still grieving, but she made a point to talk about her adoring husband Kobe, as she described. He's an amazing father to their children, and then she talked about beautiful, sweet Gianna, a loving, thoughtful, and wonderful daughter, an amazing sister to Natalia, Bianca, and Capri. Just a courageous woman. You see who she is, and I just prayers to the family as they continue to grieve through this.
Absolutely.
Just a courageous move on her part, so my prayers are with them.
Indeed, indeed. Want to switch gears right now. The Super Bowl should be an exciting game this weekend. What can we expect?
It should be exciting. You know, we were doing Media Day, and the mood was a little off. It wasn't like normal Super Bowls. But these guys are, you know, they're professionals. They're getting ready. You know, they have to focus on what's coming up Sunday. And these guys are ready, man. I expect the Kansas City Chiefs to pull it out, but don't overlook the San Francisco 49ers defense. I talked to both of these teams, and they're ready, man. They are ready to go. It's going to be exciting. As I mentioned earlier in our previous talks, get your popcorn ready.
You got it.
This is going to be a game for the ages. That's what I believe. I do believe Kansas City is going to pull it out because of the weapons.
Okay.
But we will see.
All right. That's who my son's rooting for. We will be watching indeed. And we'll be back here Monday to talk about it.
For sure. I will be here.
Thank you so much. Stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back.
Yeah, I got that. I dance around because I want it. I move around because I got it. Yours in the heart. I dance around because I want it. I move around because I got it. Yours in the heart.
On the Homefront.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Homefront, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Homefront. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Homefront, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
We leave you with this thought this Friday. There is no mountain high enough, no valley low enough, and no river wide enough to keep you from the love of God. His love reaches the highest mountain and flows to the very lowest valley. That will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our CBN News programs on the CBN News Channel at any time or online at cbnnews.com. And of course, you can also email us about the stories you've seen today. The email address is newswatch@cbn.com. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful weekend and a fabulous Friday.